What's up everyone, and today I'm bringing a deck profile on my Dinomorphia. Now if I sound a little bit sick, that's probably because I am, so I don't know if it's noticeable, but I just thought I'd mention it that way. If I sound off, that's why. But me being sick won't stop me from making this deck. So let's get right into it. I run 3 Dinomorphia, 3-Zia. 3-Zia, if this card is normal special summoned, you can set 1 Dinomorphia trap directly from your deck to your spell and trap zone. So this can essentially kind of be a 1-card starter in a way, because once you essentially get either the Dinomorphia Frenzy or the Dinomorphia Domain, you're good. Like, you can make your plays no problem. This will get you directly to it. And we have several ways to get to the traps we need. As an additional effect, if it is destroyed by battle or card effect, I can banish a trap from graveyard, special summon a level 4 or lower Dinomorphia monster from my graveyard, except 3-Zia. AK, one of our Dinomorphia Diplos. Diplos isn't as good as 3-Zia. Now if this card is normal special summoned, you could send 1 Dinomorphia card from your deck to the graveyard. Then if your life points are 2,000 or less, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. And if this card is destroyed by battle, like 3-Zia, you can banish 1 trap from the graveyard, special summon level 4 Dinomorphia monster from your graveyard. So we really don't use the effect that much. It's more or less just needed for the materials for the fusion summon. Because they usually say, like, if we have Domain, we gotta use 2 Dinomorphia monsters from our hand, field, or deck with different names. And considering these are the only 2 Dinomorphia main deck monsters, you kinda gotta run both. I run 3 Lilith, Lady of Lament. Lilith is definitely pretty cool. This will get you to your traps fairly quickly. Because essentially, if this card is normal summoned, it gains, its attack, original attack becomes 1,000. But as a quick effect, we contribute 1 dark monster. Most likely you're going to tribute itself, because there's no reason to keep it on the field. Reveal 3 normal traps from your deck, and your opponent randomly picks to run. So you can just reveal 3 copies of Frenzy, 3 copies of Domain, or Trap Trick if you really want to do that, but it's no point to go for Trap Trick. And considering all 3 are the exact same thing, really doesn't matter. Even if you have to mix and match, that's not really a downside either, because both Domain and Frenzy will get you to your win condition fairly easy. Also run 3 Lord of the Heavenly Prison. Prison's really good. It's got that, it can essentially protect your back row because you can reveal it and keep it revealed. And your spells and traps cannot be destroyed. And if a set spell trap card is activated, you can special summon this card from your hand. Then you can set 1 spell trap directly from your deck. But it gets banished on the next end phase, or the end phase of your next turn or something like that. During the end phase of the next turn, yeah. So what you can do is you can use it to set a Frenzy, or you just simply want to set a Searcher. It really doesn't matter, because it says any spell trap. Which is why I think Lord of Heavenly Prison is such a cool card in trap decks. Not only as a protection, but it allows you to set cards. Like, honestly, one thing I even thought about was playing a Fusion Destiny in this, because we could just literally set Fusion Destiny directly from our deck. Which you can do. I'm not playing it in this build, but that is something you can also put in this. It does make it a little more bricky in a way, because if you don't see Lord of Heavenly Prison and you open one of the Destiny Hero monsters, you're not really going to be able to do anything with it. Of course, you want some protection with the 1 miscellaneous source. They can bring it to 3. I don't think it need to be at 1 in the first place. But since we're running miscellaneous source, might as well run a small Dino engine with the Oviraptor and the 1 Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Essentially, what I do is, on turn 1, I set myself up, and on my opponent's turn, I'll go into either the Kentragina or the Rex turn for the Floodgate. And on my following turn, I'll go into the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno to essentially clear the game. So, Kentragina and the Rex turn are the opener Floodgates, and this is the finisher, more or less. I see some people don't run it, which I don't really get why you wouldn't run it. It doesn't really brick or anything, and it's very easy to make. In fact, with how the deck works, if you open Frenzy, it goes beautifully, because Frenzy allows you to send monsters from your extra deck as a fusion material. So you can build up 4 dinos into your graveyard very easy. Then you use Miscellaneous Source to go into Oviraptor, which will grab you Tyranno. I run 1 hand trap, and that is Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries. I bet this is a bit of a surprise. Now, A lot of hand traps I feel just aren't really performing too well right now, considering Sprite can literally negate hand traps. But the one cool thing with Reaper and Winter Cherries is this is going to hit where it hurts most, which you'll see once I get to the extra deck. Like Nibiru, D-Shifter, those are really powerful cards that will just completely shut Tier and Sprite down, or at least nearly down. But Ghost Reaper doesn't even let you get to that point. Now, of course, this is definitely something you can play on the side if you want to, and I'd probably say play this more on the side. But I'm putting it here in the main deck just to show you, because if I don't put this in the main deck and you see the extra deck, it'd be like, what are you doing? So like if you want to put like 3 Ash, 3 Nibiru, or 3 Droll inside Reaper, that's also an option. Next, on the spells, I got 3 Fossil Dig. Add 1 level 6 or lower Dino monster from your deck to your hand. Literally searches everything except so Lilith and Heavenly Present, obviously, and the Tyranno. Search Thresia, Diplos, Misk, and Overraptor. So it's just an all-around good card to get you into whatever you need. In fact, there's a lot of times where there's so much I can do, I just have options. Like let's say I have a Frenzy, a Domain, and a Thresia, and a Misk. I don't even need Fossil Dig. Likewise for my 3 Pot of Duality. Now, yes, we do special summon, but we never special summon on turn 1. Like we either normal summon Thresia to get the trap, normal Diplos, or normal the Lilith. You could go for Misk into Overraptor, but there's not really a point to that because you're almost always going to have access to your traps. So there's not really a point to go into the Tyranno except on turn 3. Considering we don't special summon on the first turn, I just run 3 Pot of Duality. Just another overall consistency card. Moving on to traps, I run 3 Frenzy and 3 Domain. These are the fusion cards. Now, one thing with the Dinomorphia archetype, it's an archetype that pays a lot of life points because that's how it functions. The lower the life points you have, the better this deck becomes, which is kind of weird. But it does make going into time a little not too great. So, going into time, this deck is going to suck. Just how it functions. Now, Domain, you can fusion summon using 1 monster from your deck and 1 monster from your extra deck. And we have 3 Dinomorphia extra deck monsters, so that's 9 potential targets. Not that we run 3 of all of them. Domain is kind of like a weaker Frenzy. It does it from the deck, not using the extra deck. But it's very easy because you just go 1 Thresia, 1 Diplos, boom, you got your Kentragina. Or if you want to go straight to Rex turn and you already have Kentragina, just go Kentragina and 1 3/0 Diplos from your deck into the Rex turn. And it's also the Domain and Frenzy also have a cool additional effect into the graveyard. Is that they can banish themselves to prevent you from taking effect damage. Which is definitely really good, because like let's say you play your normal turn and your opponent activates Poison of the Old Man. You just lost. So burn decks will feast on this deck. Thankfully we don't really have a lot of really great burn decks. I think the closest we have to a competitive burn deck probably be Trickstar. I also got 3 Dinomorphia Sonic. When your opponent activates a spell trap card while you control a Dinomorphia monster, pay half your life points to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. Then destroy 1 Dinomorphia monster you control. This can be kind of a negative in some scenarios, but destroying your own monster, if all you have is Frenzy, obviously you don't want to do that. But if you have Kentragina or anything else, you can just destroy that, and it will trigger the effects of them. Not to mention being able to have that spell trap negation is very important. Dark Roller, Droplet, that just kills the stack. As well as something like Raigeki, Darkhold, or Lightning Storm. So Board Wipers and Mass Negators will definitely kill the stack. Hand traps don't really do much outside of Imperm. So definitely having the Sonic to negate those will definitely be pretty crucial, especially in games 2 and 3. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about Red Beaver anymore, so we don't have to worry about them being negated. And the cool thing with Sonic, it is also a counter trap. So they can't really respond to Sonic unless they have something like a Solemn Judgment, which if they're going on turn 2, they're not going to have that. Also run the one Shell. Shell comes up occasionally, more or less it just summons a token. Doesn't really do a whole lot, but if you want to pay some extra life points, it will also help with that. And get a pretty decent body on the field, considering it's a monster with 0 attack, but 3k defense. So it would be a pretty big wall for them to get over. Also run 3 Trap Trick. You know, definitely want to get 2 Domain of Freesia. If you don't have Domain or Freesia or a way to access Domain of Freesia, which is in this build pretty unlikely, you just lose. It's very hard to go second with this deck. Speaking of Dark Ruler, Lightning Storm, Droplet, and all those, that's why I run 3 Anti-Spell Fragrance. Those Mass Negates and Board Breakers are really all we have to worry about. We don't have to worry about monsters, but something like a Raigeki, Lightning Storm, or a Dark Ruler no more will definitely kill this deck instantly. But if we have Anti-Spell Fragrance, they're not going to be able to do really anything because, well, yes, Droplet is a quick play. It's not really going to do anything to protect on my next turn because I'll just have so much attack on the field that I can just go for game. Because I'll have the Rexstorm, Kentragina, maybe a Stealthbergia, and the sometimes the UCT. Maybe even a Prison. So you definitely want to have that to counteract those cards. Moving on to the extra deck. I run 2 Dinomorphia Stealthbergia. Definitely not one of the weaker of the 2 Dinomorphias. Honestly, you could cut this out completely and it would not hurt the deck in the slightest, but I more or less just run it for the Frenzy effect. Life points are 2,000 or less. You do not pay life points to activate trap cards or Dinomorphia monster effects. So it can help if you're really low, but most oftentimes you definitely want to be as low as possible. So paying extra life points never really hurts. And once per turn when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. So it's got a bit of a kind of like a burn damage in a way. Although your opponent activating a monster effect, if you have Rexstorm, it isn't going to happen. So I run 3 Kentragina. Kentragina is definitely a really good card, and it's the fusion you're going to go into first most likely. Because the cool thing with Kentragina is you can banish a trap from your graveyard and copy its effects. And that is a quick effect. So let's say you use Frenzy to send Stealthbergia and Diplos. Then you can use Kentragina, banish the Frenzy to fusion summon again using another Stealthbergia and Theresia, let's say, to go into one of your copies of Dinomorphia Rexstorm. Rexstorm, it's a floodgate, more or less. Essentially, your opponent cannot activate monster effects that have attack higher than your life points. So let's say you have 1,000 life points. They cannot activate anything with 1,000 or more life points. That's why you want to get your life points down as much as possible. Like let's say if you get your life points down to 500, your opponent cannot activate any monster effects. Because most monsters have at least I'd say 800 to 2,000 attack, with the exception of hand traps, but hand traps aren't really going to do anything to help you advance your board. Like if your Rexstorm, if it gets let's say it gets impermed, you're going to be in pretty big trouble. Unless you have maybe an extra domain or something to go into a secondary Rexstorm, because that is a floodgate effect, not like an effect you activate. So if you can get another Rexstorm on the field, it will still be live. And it has an additional effect too, where it can make all your opponent's monsters attack equal to your life points. So let's say your opponent summons you have 2,000 life points and your opponent summons a monster with 1,000 attack, let's say Alistair. You can use Rexstorm, make Alistair's effect 2,000, which will in turn negate Alistair. Now next are my my Ghost Reaper targets. I do run the 1 Preplant Dragostapelia, as well as a Tearlament Kalos, and then also a Winda for my Tier Elements matchup. Considering that's the deck I expect to see most of this format, considering Sprite got hit and Tier Elements just got a slap on the wrist. A very light slap on the wrist, because losing Snow does not hurt the deck at all. This is definitely a deck I expect to see, and depending on your scenario, you'll go for either one of the 3. Obviously, Winda will allow you to continue to play. Dark Stapelia can be really good because it can definitely take away one of their negations, or Kalos, which can make it really tough for them to get into the boards they want. Also run one Sprite Elf. Now originally I was going to run Totally Awesome, but after the list, I kind of changed it up a bit because now getting into Totally Awesome for sprites is a lot harder. And they have to use Sprite Elf to do it. So if you get rid of their Sprite Elves, then they can't even go into Totally Awesome. Well, they might be able to, but it will be extremely difficult and probably not even worth it at that point. And their plays will definitely come pretty limited, so their best play will probably be going into maybe the Gigantic Sprite, maybe an Apollosa, or a Zeus. Which, if we have a Rex term on the field, neither of those are going to matter in the slightest. Also run one Dark Ruler no more, just a link to maybe get rid of some of the lower attack monsters on the field, because one other downside to a deck like this, like let's say you have a Diplos on the field, for example, in an attack position. If your opponent attacks into it, you're probably going to lose. So you can at least use Dark to get these off the field if you don't have a way to fuse it away. That way you don't just have a sitting target for them to attack into to reduce your life points to 0. Now next, I run one Apollosa and one Exco Talker. While yes, we can use them to make them ourselves, more or less they're going to be for our opponent. Because let's say they're going first. Depending on what deck they're going to play, they're going to go into either Apollosa if they're going first, or Axis Code if they're going second. We take out Apollosa, they're not going to have a whole lot of counterplay during our turn. You take out Axis Code, they can't end the game, and they lose their closer. So it definitely forces their playing to become a little bit more predictable. And that's it for my Dinomorphia deck. Let me know what you think about Dinomorphia. Do you think it's a deck with potential? I definitely do think it's got potential, although time rules can definitely hurt it a little bit. So I'll see you in the next video I make. Bye.